everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Hello, Rush Nation, and welcome to the 5 Yard Dynasty podcast. I am your host, Liam, or at the FSA Tweets on Twitter. And today, I've got a special guest. Before I introduce him, I will immediately apologize for being about 7 minutes late. Massive technical difficulties trying to get this one going. But first of all, before we dive into that and show you exactly why there's been technical difficulties, Dan at Dan Hughes 99 is on, as he's on Twitter, one of the 5 Yard Dynasty writers, the host for 5 Yard Rush, of the 5 Yard flagship show, one of the UKFFC organisers. He helps out with the BFFL. The list goes on, Dan. You can plug everything.
Right? Yeah.
Well, you can plug everything when you've got a chance. But yeah, how are you doing? But it's been a long time since getting you on.
It has been a long time since we speak a lot, but a long time since we sat down and looked each other in the eyes doing it, right? So,
the last time must have been the UKFFC that we've looked at each other like this. Yeah, it's been a time.
It was good fun. That was good fun, right? We're going to do it again this year.
Yeah, it was good fun, and that's a perfect segue into a shameless plug that we both wanted to drop. We've got some big news from the UKFFC point of view this week. It involves one of the big names over in the US, and some news that he's going to drop as well. That's as much hint as I'm going to give. But just keep an eye out at _UKFFC on Twitter or at UKFFC on Facebook. The news will be going out on both. Tickets are £10. And if you don't know what the UKFFC is, it's a convention style charity fantasy football event. We had 80 people last year, or 80 attendees. Last year raised over over £2,000 for the Mind charity. This year, we're raising money for the MPS Society and hoping to be much bigger than it was last year. So, shameless plug out the way, Dan. As we do with every interview, or every guest, we have an interview. And just wanted to ask you when you'd started playing fantasy football. I know that you've been in it quite a while compared to some of the other guests I've had on, such as myself.
I've probably played fantasy football now 8-9 years, maybe 10, that sort of time frame. Local leagues, friend leagues, and I guess like most, just prior to lockdown, started to find that the sleeper came out and things like that, and that kind of exploded from there, didn't it? So, but yeah, no, I've probably been playing fantasy football in one way or another for probably close to 10 years now.
And then how long have you been creating content? So we've just listed a bunch of things you do, and I know that's not all of it, but how did you get into it? How long have you been doing it? Because that's something that varies from person to person.
Yeah, not very long, and I don't do as much as I want to. I'd like to write more. Time constraints and the quick turnaround of the writing side of it really does prohibit me a little bit. But the hosting, I've done work for football clubs before on hosting stuff, and I had my own show, and Murph asked me to come in and help out when Stocks took a step back on the flagship show. And yeah, it's going from strength to strength. Murph's someone I know incredibly well through our Bucks fandom together. We talk a lot in the fantasy community. So, and then obviously being part of 5 Yard is what got me into knowing you guys and Rich, and we've kind of put the UKFFC together from a dream and a vision, I guess, we all individually had, that kind of realised we were each on the same page. So that went together. As for the BFFL, Simo lives just down the road from me, but I saw it on Twitter and reached out and said, hey, this looks interesting. Old school, spreadsheet-based fantasy league. And I love it. The community he has managed to build there is phenomenal. It's over 100 people now, 100 teams. It's good fun. It is good fun.
Yeah, BFFL is great. And for those that are listening that haven't heard of it, it's the British Fantasy Football League. It's a promotion style. So think about English football. Like you have your Premier League, you have the Championship, League One, League Two, going all the way down. Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure there are seven, eight leagues. I know
There's
two more
now
this year.
there's now 5 promotion relegation tiers. There's a best ball tier and then 2 feeder leagues. So yeah, we're looking at 8 different leagues. The top 6 are now 16 team divisions. So they're pretty in depth. So we're over 110 teams, something like that now. Between it all, there's 2 cup competitions.
So Dan, we haven't
aligned to it as well.
Yeah, it is massively tough. I joined the Bulldog, so that's the first lot or the highest point of the best ball situations last year, and I admittedly thought it was PPR and it wasn't, so I loaded up on wide receivers.
Yep.
Yeah, loaded up on wide receivers and it didn't go as smoothly as I hoped. So we aren't here to just plug everything under the sun. We are here for an actual 5-yard Dynasty show, and that show today, if you've been on Twitter, has been you'll have seen it. And it's the 2023 rookie draft. We're going to be doing a live draft. I've got 12 people, including Dan. Dan's going to be picking his own team. I've decided to take a step back here, and we're going to be doing a 30-second timer. Looking at who is online, I'm quite worried a certain few people aren't on, but we'll skip ahead, and let's get this into the studio. So there you go. You should be able to see it, and let's get this thing kicked off. So, Toma, if you are listening, it is, yeah.
Incredibly quick turnaround. Rookies we know nothing about. No draft capital assigned to them. No landing spot assigned to them. We're assuming this is Superflex here, Liam. Is that right?
It is, yes, Superflex.
Fine.
So this is the interesting part here because we could see Bijan Robinson go. Yeah, Bijan Robinson.
Online. Good boy.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty consensus. I think for 2 years he's probably been the 101 in this year's rookie draft, even in a Superflex league.
Yeah, it depends on how low he goes because we could expect some quarterbacks to go. Jordan Addison as the 102 there. That's an interesting pick. I like Addison a lot. I'm not sure. No, I'm not sure I'm picking him at the 102.
And Bryce Young, thank you very much.
Yes, that would be dream scenario at 104. But
I deliberately picked 4 intentionally because there's a little turning point at 4 for me in Superflex, I think.
There is, and this is where I see the teardrop once those quarterbacks have gone. If Coach Bruce isn't around, we're just going to have to let the clock run down and it'll go on to auto. Let me turn this sound off because it is
very limited ADP
in the background.
In trouble.
ADP is going to be okay. Zay Flowers. So that's not exactly who I would have gone with, but more wide receivers so far. So for those podcast listeners, the current standings are Bijan Robinson 101, Jordan Addison 102, CJ Stroud 103, Bryce Young to add Dan 104, Zay Flowers 105, Jackson Smith. I should have looked up how to pronounce his name. Njigba, I believe, is how you say it.
I think you're right there. Yeah. We've got another auto here.
Is 106. I'm going to change that player hopefully quickly to Jamar Gibbs, just because I think that's going to be the consensus 104. So we see 107 is Jamar Gibbs and 108 is Zach Evans. Now, Dan, we'll come back to your 104 and let this draft run a little bit. Bryce Young at 104 is going to be a dream scenario. I'd expect it, especially in Superflex. But do you see how do you rank CJ Stroud and Bryce Young? Are they kind of neck and neck for you? I see some people liking one over the other a lot more. How do you feel about those two?
I've got Bryce Young slightly ahead, but I think it is a toss of a coin, and their landing spot will determine a lot on who has the quickest route to success. I mean, we saw even this year with Malik Willis is stopped growing after the combine and draft and so on, and he was probably one of the biggest letdowns so far of the draft because of playing time. So Bryce Young is who I'd pick if I had a clean shot on the 1-2 spot, but I'm not fussed with either of them there.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, I'm going through my film evaluations at the moment. They aren't finished, but I kind of have them neck and neck from what I've seen. I mean, I can't. I'm splitting hairs without knowing the draft capital behind it. So let's talk about that 104 we spoke about earlier. Or we expect to be the 104 is Jamar Gibbs, or at least that's where I've got him. Is that where you're kind of sat at the moment at 104? Because you said that there's a kind of a pivot point, a bit of a cliff.
Yeah, I think 4 in here. I think BJ Robinson will go 1-1. I think Stroud and Young should be 2 and 3 in nearly all rookie drafts I think we see this year. 4 for me is then where the turning point is. I think Jamar Gibbs is a huge prospect. I think if either Anthony Richardson or Will Levis get draft capital and start to root, I think their upside in a super flex is phenomenal. And if you're short on QBs, that's a real gamble point and something you could pick up there. Or we've seen recently with the emergence of picking wide receivers and having the length and the duration of careers, any of Addison, Smith and Jigba, or even Johnson being the way to go there. So I think the 1-4 is the first place where you're really kind of looking at your roster and your build and value, really, for me.
Yeah, I think 104 is the tough spot because that's where there feels like a clear drop before draft capital has been announced and that side of the picture has been made clear. But I think with Jamar Gibbs, I just feel like he is a step up from the other running backs. Like if we think about last year, we had Brees and we had Kenneth Walker, and some people were putting Spiller into that tier, but I didn't quite see them there, and nor did the NFL, to be fair. But I kind of see that situation again where it's those two in tiers of their own, and then we've kind of got everyone else. Let's look at the wide receivers in the first round. So we saw Quentin Johnson go at the 109. So that makes up Addison, Zay Flowers, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, and Quentin Johnson as the 4 wide receivers in the first round. Is there anyone out of those 4 that you particularly like, you're high on? I know that I've got one above the rest, but I don't know.
My favourite is
whether that's it.
Quentin Johnson is my favourite at the minute. Big-bodied outside receiver, 6'4". I think he's 200 and odd pound. He's going to have a huge size weight advantage over most corners in the league. I've got him very much a kind of Mike Evans, Mike Williams type outside receiver there at the minute. Could be a huge red zone threat with that size. And his pace is, the combine will tell us a little bit more, but I don't expect it to be too bad for a guy of his size. I think he's going to be comparable. Yeah. So, he's the one I'm looking at in a minute. Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think, could be a target monster running in the slots and them routes. But for me, I think longevity of career, Quentin Johnson's where I'm looking at.
I can understand where you're going with that. The guy that I like out of everyone is Jordan Addison. I think that he has that speed, and I don't know whether this is something that I need to change in my film review, but I'm always drawn to the speedy, flashy, good route running, like just those normal guys rather than like a big power guy. You can quote me going back to the do you need a pause? Sorry, Dan. Are you good?
No, have I got time? How long have we got? Oh, it's got
okay. Who do you want instead? We'll change the player.
Stetson Bennett's not a fair shout. Leave it there. Go on.
Okay. So For everyone listening, that's the third round. We're still talking about the first. I prefer Jordan Addison, but then I've got Quentin Johnson as my 2 and Jackson Smith and Jigba as my 3.
Well, I've got Addison as my 2. Yeah, I've got Johnson, Addison, and then I've got Jigba as my 3. So, which
I think draft capital is going to be
huge
key.
value at 3. Yeah.
I think draft capital is going to be huge for those 3 players just to see where they go. So let's move on to the quarterbacks that have gone. So to round out the first round, we had Zach Charbonnet at the 110, McBride at the 111, a running back that I'm not particularly familiar with by name. I haven't done film review on him. And then Will Levis 112, and straight after at the 201 was Anthony Richardson. Now, those 2 quarterbacks you mentioned, Will Levis. Do you think that that's a bit late in drafts, in Superflex drafts? I'm looking at those thinking they're actually quite good values at quarterback if we kind of see a Herbert or a Zach Wilson kind of bad example with Zach Wilson, but that kind of value going that late, you could easily
Levis and Richardson. If Levis and Richardson get the landing spot on the draft capital, their upside would even warrant them being picked where I am, sitting at the 1-4. I can see that if you get a direct route. The upside they both have could be huge. Picking Anthony Richardson up at the 2-1 in a Superflex league, for me, shouldn't be happening. I think all 4 of those QBs should be going first round rookie Superflexes. And I reckon if you can get one at the 110 or beyond, you could be stealing them. Because, I mean, they may bust. Let's face it, they may. They've both got question marks. But the upside of both of them is huge.
I mean, all picks will have, all rookies will have question marks. There's no guarantee on any of them. But yeah, I feel the same. That's why I kind of phrased the question the way that it was. If they're quarterbacks and they get taken in the first round, then it's a simple, they've got to go in the first round in a rookie draft. Or at least that's how I see it. So looking at the other picks after Anthony Richardson at the 201, we've got Tank Bigsby, one of my draft crushes just on film, was 202. Ty Spears, 203, and Marvin Mims, 204. I think Tank Bigsby going at the 202 is value. As I said, he's my draft crush this year. I tried to stray away from the undersized running back that is flashy, but will get tackled early, kind of like the Kenneth Gainwell of a few years ago. I absolutely fell for him. And that's the other guy that I wanted to talk about. Ty Spears reminds me a lot of him based on his film. So where do you fall on both of those 2? Because to me, I'd probably be drafting Ty Spears a little bit later on and Tank Bigsby a little bit earlier on.
Okay, I like both of them. Who do I prefer? Yeah, I'd probably prefer Bigsby a little bit, to be honest, although Spears showed recently that he can work out okay. I think there's something there. I don't know. I've seen rankings both ways, to be honest with you. I've seen rankings have Spears high, especially after the Pro Bowl workouts and that. So, but no, I like Bigsby. I think we see McBride taken in the first, which I don't think he will be. So, I think Bigsby probably fills that slot 111 a little bit more in the draft. I think the auto pick there on the way we had this just for it out a little bit. So.
I'm with you there. The auto's not the best right now because there's not a lot of ADP going around. So there's not a lot that we can really do on that. So looking at the draft board, we've got Rice going at the 206, Douglas 207. Are there any names that are jumping out to you? I mean, I'm looking at Keyshawn Booty at 211. And Hyatt at 212. Yeah, those 2 are the ones that really jump out to me. I mean, Downs has been seeing a lot of hype on Twitter at 301. Do you think those should be a little bit higher up? And do you think they would have been if these autos had been a bit better?
Yeah, I looked at those names at the 2-4. Thought it was probably a little bit too early. I think anywhere sort of 2-6 and beyond is probably where
Yeah.
they're going to fall. I quite like Marvin Mims in the slot. I've got him at 2-4. Um, I think Marvin Mims, to be fair, is one of those players that could go early second and could go early third, depending on how actual people view him within your draft and their needs. But no, Brute Hyatt, Downs, comparable. So much variance on landing spot with those guys right now. Hyatt, I feel, is going to be a fantastic best ball addition. I think he could be a player that's really hit and miss most weeks in terms of actually starting him in a roster. But no, they're good value there.
Sorry, Dan, I think my internet cut out there.
I said, getting those guys at the 2-3 turn is good value. Good value.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. But after that, I'm kind of starting to look at some of the guys that have gone and finding myself quite out of depth because, as I've said, I've only been doing my film review for a few weeks, so I'm now looking at names that I'm not hugely familiar on. I mean, Hendon Hooker's been getting a bit of hype, but I don't think he's going to be going in the first or second round, so that kind of pushes him into that Malik Willis kind of range, if not further on. And I can see in the third and fourth round, you've got 2, 4, 6 quarterbacks that have been taken. So that makes 10 overall in this draft. I think that's a bit of wishful thinking. Maybe some of the autos kind of didn't help there. But I do think that we're not going to see as many quarterbacks go when landing spot and draft capital are determined because
I think 8 is fair. I can make a case for 7 or 8 of those being gone.
Yeah.
Depends how big your league is and so on as well, right?
Well, yeah, definitely. And I suppose if you've got a 5-round draft, then you'll probably see a couple more quarterbacks go in the 5th because just taking that upside is going to be immense. We've got a few tight ends on here as well, and I see Mayer at the 306, and I've seen a lot of people are high on him, but he's actually the tight end 2, and I think that is down to a auto before him because Ford did go at the 305, so I think that was an auto pick. But Mayer at the 306, is he your tight end 1 in this class?
He is, yeah. I just struggle. And this is a personal thing. Anybody that's listened to me on Murph on the flagship show will know. I'm not a fan of tight ends, and I'm going to struggle to draft any rookie tight ends whatsoever in any rookie draft in any league I'm in. I just can't bring myself to do it. How can I put it? The differential at the position for the mid-range guys is so small. The route to both NFL success and fantasy success for somebody in a tight end position it takes years to get there, generally speaking. Even look at Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts came out of the draft as one of the greatest receiving prospects at the tight end ever. He was going first top 4 or 5 picks of rookie drafts. Has he really made that impact? No. So, does he fall any difference in terms of general tight end? Is he in the bunch with the likes of Gerald Everett and people like that? He probably is in terms of where he's at. So, for me, I very much doubt I will ever be drafting a rookie tight end in a rookie draft. Just don't see.
Yeah. In my first year, I took Noah Fant in the 2nd in a 1 quarterback league, and I was quite happy on the initial return investment on that. And after that, not very much. And Kyle Pitts is the only other tight end I've taken that isn't just an absolute flyer in the 4th or 5th round and just hoped for the best.
But even then, I'd sooner take a 4th or 5th round running back or quarterback in a super flex and just hope they find a path. Why would you not? Like, I mean, Elijah Mitchell. I had so much Elijah Mitchell, 4th and 5th round draft a couple of years back. I mean, how many leagues this year did Brock Purdy get drafted in? Probably not very many.
Well, not many. Yeah, not many. Unless it was 5-round super flex, and even then, you're probably not drafting him.
Even then, you're stretching.
Bailey Zappi and stuff, just guys that will have increased in value. But yeah, last year I think I took tight end in not many of my leagues, and if I did, it would have been like 4th, 5th round where they dropped an extra round where they probably shouldn't have, or I thought they shouldn't have. Someone like a Jelani Woods or a Greg Dulcich in the very late rounds. Apart from that, I'm just smashing the other 3 positions: quarterback, wide receiver, and running back. And talking of running back,
such
though,
a technical position that there is,
it is,
coaching
yeah.
and development needed. Running back, with the greatest respect, other than the blocking and the pass blocking and site assignments, it's head down and run with the ball as hard as you can, as quickly as you can, effectively. So the route to the NFL field is quicker and easier.
Yes, definitely. And tight ends, I love watching the tight end tape. I don't know why I'm drawn to the tight end tape. I just love watching it, but I just don't see any of them making an immediate impact, and that's what puts me off. And that's why I watch all my tight ends last, because there's no point in me watching them until I really need to. So we've had a couple of comments from the guys in the draft about Kendry Miller. Is that how you say the name? Miller at 308. I think he was the guy that we ended up repicking Gibbs for at the 107. And he seemed to have dropped off people's draft boards. Maybe people didn't see that we'd repicked him. But based on the reaction, he should not be going at 308. He admittedly is not one of the guys I've done film on, but I have been seeing his name in the 2nd round in some of the mock drafts I've tried to look at.
Miller's 6 foot, 220 odd pounds. His college career average is over 3.5 yards after contact per attempt, which is phenomenal. He's got great spin moves and hurdles and so on within his thing. He's got missed tackles everywhere. 13 games, including the Big 12 Championship, he had 1,300 yards on 216 carries, and 6.2 yards a carry. He has risen and risen. The nearer the draft gets for me, the better he's looking, to be honest. You say you haven't done tape on him yet?
No, I haven't. He is one of the next ones to do. But a guy that I had done tape on is Sean Tucker.
Miller landing spot. Wouldn't surprise me if he went back into the 1st, depending on his landing spot in this draft, in a rookie draft, not in NFL.
That's quite interesting, because if he does get a good draft capital, that will always help running backs. As I said, there was a guy that has gone a bit later on that I've done tape on, and that's Sean Tucker, the 401. I didn't quite expect him to go that late. I kind of expected him to go a little bit earlier. Do you think that he can sneak into that 2nd round? Or because I've seen people really like him, I'm not sold 100% on him. There are still bits that I want to see more out of from for a fantasy football point of view, but still think that if you're picking him up in the 4th, he could be that Elijah Mitchell
if you pick him in the 4th, sleeper. He's fantastic. I think if you're getting him
exactly
3-2 onwards, you've probably found a bit of value. Will he rise to the mid-2nd? Again, there's so many variables at play here that, yes, with his landing spot, if he finds an easy route to the starting role, I don't know, let's say someone like Denver pick him up. Yes, I got Javonte Williams coming off an injury, shared backfield. Yeah, he's got a route to almost be a starter there, depending on how Javonte Williams' injury plans out early. If he's got the route to start early, he's got the right to earn the role. So that kind of thing, I think you could see him jump up mid-2nd, late 2nd.
So, looking at the last 2 rounds for podcast listeners, I'm just going to read them out for you. So you've got Josh Downs at the 301, Hendon Hooker 302, Evan Hall 303, Stetson Bennett at 304, 305 was Marshawn Ford, 306 Michael Mayer, as we mentioned earlier, 37 was Malik Cunningham, 38 was Kendry Miller, 39 was Israel Abinakanda. That was an awful pronunciation, but we'll go with it. 310 was Dalton. Why are you come on, Sleeper. Why are you throwing me all these names that I haven't prepped for? Dalton Kinnaid? Is that how you say it?
Yep.
Yeah,
say so.
Sounds fine. 311, Jaron Hall, and 312 was Lewis Nichols. So that was the third round. Any names that we haven't spoken about so far, Dan, that you're surprised to see there, that you're surprised not to have gone higher, or do you think that's kind of what we're going to expect around that third round?
Hall, maybe. I guess super flex, and if you've got some third round, the name roster is taking a punt on someone, fair, I guess, because the back end of the fourth isn't going to be there. So, but I don't like it. They say the value, all the tight ends, as I said, for me, I don't like unless you're incredibly tight end needy, and there's a clear route to start, and I don't see any of them. I don't see any of them becoming fantasy football quality this year. So I'd move everybody up half a round according to that effectively and take them out. But no, nothing there. As I said, we talk about variables in terms of landing spot and draft capital. But the variables not in play here as well is each person's roster build. How are you?
Yes, definitely.
What have you got? Like the 2 and 3 in front of me here, Evan and Andy Davis just took a tight end in the fourth. For me, they've come 11th and 10th in this division. I don't think drafting a tight end is ultimately going to help them, even in the fourth. Even if it becomes a success, because the value to pass on isn't good enough. So take a hit on a running back, land Elijah Mitchell, sell them on, make profit, turn it around. If you're rebuilding your roster, do that. If not, pick up a wide receiver, someone with longevity that could actually make a role and form themselves a position. You can keep them on your roster for 12 years.
We know what
tight end being worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. As I said earlier, I didn't really draft any tight ends in rookie drafts last year. But what I was going to say is we know that the ex-co-host of the 5 Yard Dynasty show, the one that got 5 Yard Dynasty up and running, Rich at Dynasty Island, is famous for taking running backs and nothing else when he gets to the third and fourth rounds. You know, I know you've been in startups with him, as have I, obviously. And in normal startups, he will just take running back after running back after running back, and you just see 10 to 15 rounds at the end of a dynasty startup of just green for sleeper because it's just running backs all the time. And that's what he does in rookie drafts as well. And I completely get it. There are some wide receivers that I might consider, but otherwise, running backs are probably going to hit in the first or second year. After that, they're probably not making it at all. If they have
instead of those tight ends there, I'd take a punt on the QBs in the super flex. If you sat on them in a taxi squad or left them there, you may potentially have the value to trade on. A running back or a QB in those late rounds for me, pick a guy that you like and take a punt on it. And if they find a route to starting, you've either then got a star or you've got trade value. You can actually try and flip around and build your roster, especially if you're in the early picks of a rookie draft, because you need help and work. So, and that's another reason I picked fourth. The fourth spot, your roster could be anything. It could be atrocious, just not as bad as those, or it could be you actually just need to retool a little bit and make that sixth spot. So it's a real open, flexible position for me being at the 4 in a rookie draft. But yeah,
so look,
QBs, running backs, take them.
Yeah. So going for the fourth round for the podcast listeners that can't see, you've got Sean Tucker at the 401, Darnell Washington 402, Luke Musgrave 403. You want to help me out on this one, Dan?
Xavier Valaday or Xavier Valaday. I'm not sure how he pronounces it. Yeah, Arizona State running back.
Yeah, Xavier Valaday sounds right, but I'll have to go away and have a look at some pronunciations after this. So that was a 404. Dan must have taken him just to put me on the spot. Yeah, so 405 is Clayton Tune, 406 Jake Honer, 407 Payne Durham, 408 is Deuce Vaughn, 4-9 Kenny McIntosh, 4-10 Eric Gray, 4-11 Benton Strange, and 4-12 CJ Johnson. Now, outside of Sean Tucker, I'm completely out of my depth. I've seen Luke Musgrave's name around, but as a tight end, I'm sure we've covered bashing a tight end way too much on this podcast. It's only been 35 minutes, and I'm pretty sure we could say we've spent 10, 15 minutes on tight ends. So
32, yeah.
So tell me more about Xavier and Valladay. I'm assuming you picked him for a reason other than just to trip me up on my pronunciation.
I did, and I actually think he'll be available later in drafts, but he is. We're trying to do this right to put the product out at the end of the day, and I think Xavier, I don't know. Let's call him Valley for short.
Yeah, Valley.
He's one of the guys I like as a late round pick. He's a 6-foot running back. He weighs 200 pounds. He was a fifth-year transfer to Arizona State, which isn't wonderful, but in the year he played at Arizona State as a senior, 12 games, he had just shy of 1,200 yards, so 1192 on 215 carries. He came out with 5.5 yards per carry and 16 touchdowns. But what I also like in the passing game, he had 37 receptions for 289 yards, which, what's that, 6.5 yards a reception there. So I like him as a running back. Yeah, I think he's got playmaking ability. I don't think he's that explosive, but he's a big back. He can carry the ball. He can catch the ball. I think he's somebody that could find himself a decent role in the NFL, depending on the roster he lands on. And he is somebody. Hey, I'd take a punt on late in drafts for sure. He isn't going to be a star name. He'll be a memorable name.
Yeah, he will be a memorable name. Those are the type of guys that you kind of want to look at. I mean, 6 foot, 210 to 220 pounds is kind of like not average, but that's the kind of size that you want to look at. I mean, Kenny McIntosh ticks those boxes, but I'm looking at his stats right now, and it doesn't impress me a whole lot. Rich might be trying to tear his headphones off right now as a Georgia fan, but he didn't eclipse 1,000 rushing yards. He did have a lot of receiving yards, over 500 in his last year. So he could be a guy to look at. That's one name that I'm going to have to put in my film for straight after this podcast, because I like the look of him, and if you can get him in the 4th, that sounds pretty good as well. But say you didn't get Valladay at the end, who would you have gone for? Just looking at the names that are after and the names that haven't gone, is there another guy that you're targeting in this 4th round?
Oh, good question. Keaton Mitchell, did he go? Can't see him on there.
I don't think he did. Let's have a look.
He didn't, did he?
No, he didn't. He's still on the board. So Keaton Mitchell.
Yeah. Keaton Mitchell is a East Carolina player. I'm an East Carolina college fan. So, I have a lot of Zay Jones, purely on that basis that he's one of the few fantasy-based ECU players that make the NFL. So, and why not? That's the benefit of supporting a lesser-known college, right? Is to actually follow these guys through their career and have the benefit of it. And so I'm going to highlight Keaton Mitchell. Decent player. I don't think he's going to set any records or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. But 22 as a junior, 11 games, 1,300 yards on 180 attempts is 7.5 yards a carry. No fumbles as well. 25 receptions for 235 yards. So he's decent. He's an elite as a receiver, which I think will help. He can play out of the slot. Good natural hands. Catch and run situations, things like that, he's going to be good for. He's not great as a pass blocker, which I think may actually hinder his time getting on the field. He's not wonderful at bursting through the box, that turn of speed and the power in his cuts, and he isn't the biggest either. But he is somebody I will personally be supporting and following through their NFL career. because that's what I like about following a smaller college and the players they have is there's very few of them to follow. We're not LSU, we're not Alabama, we're not best with 63 wide receivers taken in the last 10 years in the NFL and so on. So, anything I've got late fourth round picks, early fifth round picks, Keaton Mitchell will be amongst my highest rostered players on that basis that I want to see the guy succeed.
I mean, it also helps that it's not a tight end and it's a running back. So,
correct.
I'll give
it's
you
a running
that
back. It's a running back that can catch the ball and play out the slot. There is a route to NFL success for him there.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I like Kenny Gainwell. And I keep banging on about it because I'm still upset about it to this day. And I'm hoping that he gets his chance this year with Sanders not around. So let's recap this first round. And because I'm running out of things to say about a fourth round pick right now. Let's recap this first round, Dan. And I suppose the biggest question I have for you is we're talking about the 104 in normal drafts, maybe being the drop-off point, and you're looking at Bijan, Stroud, and Young being the 101 to the 1-3 in some combination. And then were you in agreement that Gibbs was 104?
I think 104 will depend on your roster and your build and why you're at 4. As I say, 4 can be a mess of a roster that is just better than what else is out there. And 4 can be one that just needs a couple of positions change and a couple of retools to become playoff worthy. So for me, Bijan, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young will probably go 1 to 3, and I'd love to speak to Andy and find out why he took Addison at 2, because he said he had a reason for it, and I'd love to know what it is. Andy, if you're listening, pop a message in the chat because I want to know why. But there'll be 1, 2, 3. It will then depend on who you like best in terms of draft capital. If Will Levis or Anthony Richardson get a starting role based on draft capital on the NFL draft night, and it's super flex, I can see why you take them at 1-4. If you want longevity of a career and they've gone, pick Quentin Johnson, Jordan Addison, whoever your favorite wide receiver is, and stick them in your lineup and leave them there for 15 years. If you like Jamar Gibbs and you think in the real NFL draft, I could see Jamar Gibbs being drafted before BJ Robinson.
See, that's why I like
in the NFL world.
That's why I like Gibbs, is because I think that he is for an NFL team a close second to Bijan. I know that everyone's like Bijan's 101. That's crazy that anything's going to change. But I don't think Gibbs in a real NFL situation is going to be too far away from Bijan in terms of what
it depends on to do. Correct. And what these NFL organizations are looking for, I could see a situation where the organization goes, Gibbs will suit us better than Bijan. And I can see why they would go that way. I don't think it matters ultimately in terms of fantasy rookie draft coming off the back of it, unless the landing spot for Bijan is horrendous. But no, I think the 1-4, there's probably 6 players. What we got? We've got Addison, Johnson, and Jigba, if that's the way you want to go. Levis, Richardson, and Jamar Gibbs. There's 6 players there that, in theory, you could make an argument for all of them at the 1-4. And that, from there onwards, your draft change.
See, that's interesting because out of those 6, you didn't name a second running back. And I know a lot of people like running backs. No, I mean, apart from Jamar Gibbs, there's not another running back in that 6. So that was going to be my next question is, who is your next running back on the board? Because you've got guys like Zach Evans, Zach Charbonnet, Tank Bigsby, we spoke about earlier, and same with Tyjae Spears. All of these names that are kind of being thrown around. Who is your next running back after Gibbs?
It is Zach Evans, and I have Charbonnet just behind. My 5 might surprise you, though. My 5 is Sean Tucker.
Sean Tucker, okay. Bear in mind that I'm going off film alone because the way that I do my rankings is I will look at film for everyone. And then when the NFL releases their film rankings, I'll put their grades in as well. And then I'll look at production once I've done the film study so I don't tarnish or bias myself from looking at the production, saying, "Oh, well, this person's better than this" from stats. So I haven't fully looked, but I'm looking at Sean Tucker and thinking I like Bigsby more, I like Gibbs more. Spears I kind of see around the same level, but yeah, I'm not saying he's bad by any chance. As I said, I think that in the 401 that's insane value, but I don't have him as highly as you. I'll put it that way. So after Gibbs, what I'm looking at is yeah, exactly, and I think that's what makes this year so much fun, because there's no clear wide receiver one, there's no clear quarterback one right now, and there's no clear running back 3 onwards. I think everything is open apart from running back 1, maybe running back 2, and that's it. I think there's a teardrop
after the first 3 picks. I think all rookie drafts are going to be so varied.
Yeah, and I think those first 3 picks. I think those first 3 picks are going to be varied as well, depending on the draft capital that is dropped. I think that you could easily see Bijan going 103 in some situations where people need quarterbacks. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. But yeah, the way that I see it right now is Tank Bigsby is my 3, Zach Charbonnet my 4, Spears my 5, and Tucker my 6. Bear in mind, I haven't video of Peter Mitchell, have you? No, I haven't. No, so there's a few guys. No, come on. There's a few guys that I still need to have a look at. I know that Evan, who was at the 103, was killing himself for not taking, or not killing himself, but I think he was quite surprised that, again, another name that I'm not going to be great on is that Arcane at 209. A chain, there you go. Whatever that is. He went at the 209. He was quite surprised about that. So I just think that this draft is going to be incredibly opinionated, is the best way to put it. That might clear up after draft capital, but right now it kind of feels like no mock is actually the same. It might actually be as early as that we're doing it as well.
Yeah, it's horrible right now. Take your pick, and I think we'll see a consensus come out. So when rookie drafts start after the NFL draft, I think so many, I don't know, mid-first to late on, guys will just be following ADP a little bit more. Yeah. Those leagues where you've got guys that are hobby players, if you will, that play a handful of leagues for fun and don't follow it much. Those guys, that will play to the championship, they'll dip out, they'll come back for the rookie draft in May, and then you won't see them again until September. You'll get a consensus on ADP because of the way the ADP setup is and what it is. I would love to, and it's something I do in one of my leagues, we don't run the rookie board by ADP, we run it alphabetically.
That would be interesting.
You can do starts because Sleeper allows you to do it. You can start it all alphabetically, and you don't get any forced value there. Your value is your value. You're not looking at it going, well, it says here I should take this guy, this guy, this guy, or this one. It's up to you. Go find the guy you want and take him where you want him. It's anybody that hasn't done it, it's a really interesting way to do a draft out there. And I think, as I say, we'll fall into a consensus because of ADP and what it is and how that works. But I think that if you've done the legwork, you could find some real bargains late in drafts as a result of it.
Yeah, I like the idea of that, and I might have to try and change. I either change one, or I'm just going to have to do another startup and get rookies in there like that. So
do you start A to Z?
That would be interesting. Startup.
Nobody has a value. The value is what you put.
Yeah, that would be something to look at, maybe as a podcast. But we'll stop there, because we have an answer from Andy as to why he picked Addison at the 102. So according to Andy, he picked Addison because he's seeing running backs as less valuable in fantasy football at the moment, which is fair enough. The dynasty landscape for running backs is not very good whatsoever. Like me, Andy loved the tape. And with running backs being devalued right now, taking a wide receiver, especially the best one on his board, made sense. And yeah, I can't fault that whatsoever.
No, this is exactly what we said. The four slot, right? There's those guys you can take.
Yeah.
I think at the two, I'd probably be taking the value of a QB in a super flex league over a wide receiver. But it depends how you build this. You may just have had 3 QBs in his roster that are all injured throughout the year, in which case he doesn't have the need for a Stroud or a Young. So in this instance, we weren't trading. Try and back up the spots, pick him up there, or take him as you did, Andy. Yeah, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I can see the reasoning, and as you said, team build might jump in. But yeah, I personally don't agree with not taking those 2 quarterbacks ahead of him, but I can easily see Addison at 4 and that top 4 being just slightly rejigged around. But yeah, I think that's everything from this mock draft, Dan. I mean, we could go on about all these different names, but it's all going to change when it comes to the draft. I will be doing more of these in the coming weeks and months, hoping that I get at least 2 more in before the draft, hopefully 3. Because it's fun just seeing these names drop out and seeing all these different values. As you said, might have to do one with just or might have to do them all alphabetical from now on, just so we can see that actual value comes through rather than ADP.
It rewards those that do the legwork because you don't just fall into what everybody else picks. So yeah, I love doing it that way. It's good fun.
Before we get out of here, guys, I did notice that I didn't mention the brain teaser that I ended last week's show on. So that was with Lewis looking at the end of season review for the rookies. That was because we're about 6 minutes in and we're still talking and doing the introductions, and we wanted to get this going for everyone else. So now that we're at the end, the question, Dan, I'll put you on the spot and see whether you can come up with the answer. Is which rookie drafted both in May 2022 ADP and January 2023 ADP rose the most? So we're talking about 2022 rookies here. So who rose the most between 2022 May and 2023 January?
The obvious one would be Brock Purdy, I guess.
Brock Purdy was one of the risers, but no, he wasn't actually. He wasn't actually drafted in.
No, he wasn't.
May
it's so
2022.
Yeah.
So that's why he's not one of the biggest risers, because if you take undrafted as basically a really, really low grade, a really, really low ranking, then he would have been. But because he was undrafted, no. So can you think of anyone in startup ADP that would have been drafted last year and then rose?
What position we're looking at? Give me a hint.
I'll give you a hint. It's a running back.
Okay. Rose.
And we've heard a lot of his name during the playoffs. I'll give you that.
I ain't Rashad White then. That was where I was going there. So that's that one out.
No, not Rashad White.
We heard a lot of it, not Isaiah Pacheco, I guess, because I think he was overdrafted early on anyway because of the landing spot. So I'd imagine he's a faller.
Actually, that's where you'd be wrong, Dan. It was Isaiah Pacheco. It was.
Is it really?
I was quite
fantastic. What do we know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was quite surprised by it, but yeah, it was Isaiah Pacheco.
Wow. I am surprised. I thought he'd be a faller. The landing spot would have caused him. I mean, look at the other one of the biggest fallers, I guess, from last year to now has got to be Sky Moore. Sky Moore got talked into a late first round pick in a lot of rookie drafts last year because of the landing spot.
Well, yeah,
Sky Moore's going to go undrafted in startups this year, probably.
Yeah, that's
if not, he's going to be a late round. Yeah. So.
But yeah, Isaiah Pacheco rose the most of all rookies between May 2022 startup and January 2023. So that's the interesting one. I don't have any brain teasers this week because it was a live rookie draft, so there was not much I could really come up with. The only thing I did want to say is go check out the @_UKFFC. And thank you, Dan, for joining. Is there anything you wanted to plug? I know you've got your full list of things that you work on. So is there anything on there that you wanted to get out there?
No, I'd just say keep an eye on, I guess, me and Murph on the flagship show on Mondays. Lots of good off-season content, draft build-up coming, some fantastic guests coming on the show. And we started out with it, I guess, and we'll finish with it, is the UKFFC, 8th of July in London, @_UKFFC on Twitter. Keep your eyes peeled this week. Something big is going to be announced that I don't believe has ever been done on UK shores. So we're hoping to bring it here for the first time ever. So keep your eyes peeled. If you're not going, please do. It's all for charity. It's all for a great cause. And hopefully you'll meet some friends and learn a bit while you're there too.
And meet us, because we'll both be there. We'll be running around like headless chickens trying to make sure that...
I didn't meet so many people last year. I remember talking hello to loads of people last year, but not actually having conversations with a lot of people, because you just don't get that luxury, do you? So...
No, I felt bad because I kept running around and saying, yeah, I'll come back in a second. I've just got to go do something. And then ended up speaking to them for maybe 2 minutes while I was doing it.
Well, I sat on the door and checking people in, right? I checked them in, said hello. Oh, you're so great. Give me 20 quid for raffle tickets, please. Right. See you later next one. And that was kind of my day. So it's all good.
Yeah. The only other thing is another UKFFC organizer has released a rookie guide, and as it's a live rookie draft, I thought I may as well shout him out. So that is Rich at Dynasty Island on Twitter. He's one of the UKFFC organizers. He obviously used to host this show with me, but it's only £1 and it's a 70-page guide. It is insane. He's put so much work into it. Yeah. You need to go over and buy it. As I said, it's £1. It's less than a big bar of chocolate at the supermarket. So go and get it. It'll help you in these rookie drafts. And maybe I need to go away and have a proper read of it. So I had a look through it. But because I don't want to bias myself, I don't want to look at it too much. Because I know that I'll end up falling into love with some of the guys that Rich loves as well. But yeah, go check it out at Dynasty Island on Twitter. And as always, guys, stay safe and we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.